get started here. Okay, my name is Mary Junker, and I am going to read this little thing that we have to read before each meeting that not everybody likes to do, but I'm going to do it. The League of Women Voters of Nebraska is a nonpartisan, grassroots civic organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not endorse individual political candidates or political parties. Membership in the League is open to people 16 years and older of all gender identities. And today our speaker is going to be Ramona Thomas. She is Adams County Clerk, and she's going to be talking about voting and things that she's, her role in the voting process. So, and then afterwards we will be doing voter registration, retraining, or training. So whoever wants to stick around for that, please feel free to do that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Mary said, I'm Ramona Thomas, Adams County Clerk and Election Commissioner. And I'm talking to Mary and setting this up. Some of the things she wanted to, or thought maybe you would all like to go over, is how Adams County handles the early voting process, or some people call it vote by mail. We use the term early voting. And then also wanted me to touch briefly on the SAVE Act that is halfway passed, we'll say. I'm going to start with the mail-in process. Now, I did put on the tables some early voting applications. You're welcome to take them if you or someone you know needs one. I have extras on the table there, but they're mostly just, while I speak, kind of for reference of what I might be talking about when we're talking about going through this process. So to start, vote by mail or the early voting process is available to any Nebraska voter. No longer do you need to have a reason why you can't attend the polls that day. So anyone who wants to participate in this is welcome to do so. However, Nebraska does require that you have an application on file for every election. The only exception to that, which does not apply to Adams County, is if we have a county or a precinct within a county that is an all-mail county, where that is, they don't open the polling locations. That does not apply to Adams County. We have polling locations for all of our precincts. The only other exception would be if we'd ever have a special election that is a mail-only election, and then the application process is bypassed. But for your primary and general elections, it is required that you submit to our office an application asking us to send you a ballot. So Adams County, we do choose, this is optional, not every county does this, but I choose to maintain a list of people that indefinitely want an application mailed to them. And some of you may have received this in the mail. It was your early voting application. They were sent out in mid to late February, in a postcard. It's a postcard format of actually what you have on the table today. It's just formatted a little different, a little simpler, I feel, to read. So people sometimes get confused, and they know that they've participated in early voting before, and assume that that is going to keep them just getting a ballot in the mail. That is not how Nebraska does it. You are required, as I said, every election to submit an application saying, yes, I want you to send the ballot to me. So when we hear about these people saying they get ballots automatically in the mail, not unless you're one of those counties that is an all-mail or a precinct that is all-mail, so that does not apply to Adams County. We do, on that list that I was talking about, Adams County, we have just over 2,900 voters that choose to be on that indefinite list to always get an application mailed to them. So that's about how many postcards we sent out. And as of yesterday, we've already received 1,200 of those back. So we're sitting in a fantastic position and being prepared for the primary election coming up. Okay, so how the process works I've sent out the applications are coming back. So when the applications are received back in our office, myself or a member of the staff is going to verify that all the necessary data is there. and to comply with Nebraska's voter ID law, the photo ID law that was passed or implemented in 2024. We capture that information on the early voting application process. So I'm sure you can see on that application you have on the table, or if you remember, if you got a postcard in the mail, there is a box for your Nebraska photo ID, your driver's license number or ID number. We can match that with the DMV records that we have access to, so we verify that that matches. And if it is somebody that does not have a state ID or a driver's license number, those applications must be accompanied by a photocopy of an approved photo ID. We get very few of those, but it's usually the state ID number, driver's license number. We verify all the information, the voter's name, the address, party, ID requirements, and then we would accept that application. So that's what we're doing right now. So applications then are approved, and if they are approved, we're putting them in numerical order and awaiting ballots. We don't have ballots yet to send out. We're still waiting for certifications from the state, and we can send ballots out as early as April 6th if we do have them. So if an application is denied, we do reach out to that voter and say, you know, you're denied, the application's denied, maybe lack of signature, maybe lack of ID information, but we do reach out to that voter and they do have an opportunity to come in and correct that. So as I said, now ballots will be mailed out starting April 6th, provided we have them. Okay, so then this is probably the part that concerns most people. What happens when I send my ballot back in? So if you do remember it, if you've ever participated in the early voting process, there is a voter oath on the back of the early voting envelope that you do sign, and there's a place to put your address. So when the ballots do come back, and I do feel I need to stress this because I hear people say they don't check all those ballots. We absolutely do. Every single one that comes in, every envelope that comes in, we are verifying the signature that is on file, sometimes through the DMV or sometimes with a previous voter registration application. We are checking that application, and yes, if it is sufficient, if it is different and we feel that it is not close enough that we can say, yes, this was the person that signed it, we are notifying them. And I can't say we send a lot of those notices out, but I would say that we send maybe a dozen out every election, because we are checking those. So it hurts me a little when people say, oh, they're not checking those. We absolutely do. And we're not doing it with scanning equipment. Some of your larger counties may have scanning equipment that can match. We are looking at every single one. So if the ballot is accepted, it is matched with the application. So ballot envelope, not opened. It's not opened at this point. We've looked at the back of the envelope, signature matches, all the necessary data is there. Hey, we're going to accept this ballot. We get their application to prove, yes, they requested this by mail, match them up, and they are filed in a locked box by precinct, awaiting the counting board. So then when we get to the point, and then we do also run daily reports to balance our ballot numbers. I'll run reports saying, okay, we checked in 75 ballots today. We make sure that we have 75 envelopes there. If we don't, then something got missed being logged in, and we have to go through and find that. It's easier to do it on a daily basis than waiting till the end. That's why we do it daily. Yes?
Well, we still have the option, 3 different options for returning the mail-in ballots, mail, drop box, or bringing them directly to the office.
Yes, and then also waiting in our office.
Because there are some places they're saying they're not going to have drop boxes anymore. Other states.
Other states. Yeah. I don't know about other states. So
they're still going to be in.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And is the only drop box in Adams County at the courthouse?
It is, yes.
Could you repeat that
So
question?
we do run daily reports. So starting May 1st. Now, I do not start this early. It is not necessary for Adams County to start this early, but May 1st, by statute, is the first day that you can have a counting board convene and start going through those envelopes and prepping the ballots for counting. So county board usually consists of election workers that maybe have worked several elections, very knowledgeable election workers. And what they are doing is they will meet and they're going to, number one, they're going to double check that we didn't miss any envelopes like lacking signature or lacking information. They're going to make sure that there is an application for every ballot envelope that we have received. And if they are satisfied, then they start the opening process. The opening process, and it's easier now that the ballots are folded, but the envelopes are opened in a manner which preserves the privacy of the voter. So the ballot and the envelope are separated from one another, put in a stack. The envelopes and applications will get put in a retention area. We have to keep those for 22 months. They're a stack of folded ballots. Then they'll unfold them and prep them for the counting machine. And when I say prep them for the counting machine, it's really nothing more than laying them flat and trying to get those creases out so it goes through the machine well. Then those ballots are stored in locked boxes by precinct until we count them I start on election day. So as I said, statutorily, we can start that process as early as May 1st. Realistically, for this election, I don't think we're going to need to start any before the 13th or 14th. So we start much later than what is allowed. So ballots are, sealed in the envelope until that time. So they're prepped for counting, and like I said, we start counting those on election day. I usually start afternoon, after the lunch hour. We might visit all the precincts, make sure everything's running smoothly, and then we'll come back and start counting the early voting ballots. So those, when you see results released right at 8 o'clock at night on election night, that's our early voting. Because people do have until 8 p.m. on election day to return their early voting ballot. So it's kind of a process throughout election day where we're counting the bulk of them after lunch, but there's some trickling in. And we have to go through the qualification process, so my staff will look them over, they'll check them in, and the counting board will review them, and if they're satisfied, then we count throughout the day until 8 o'clock, and then that is closed. Early voting is no longer allowed, and we await for the polling locations to bring their ballots to us. So now this process of the counting board, it is open to the public should anyone want to view it and just want to make sure that what I am telling you now is actually what's happening. That is permissible. You just let me know. Observers just have to stay 8 feet away from the ballots. So, is there any questions regarding early voting, how it works, or yes?
Does this whole process repeat itself at the general election?
Yes, every election.
Can we have you, Ramona, repeat the question? Because it's not going to
Sure.
get picked up.
Jenny asked if this process repeats itself in the general election. Yes, this is the format we follow for every election.
For ballots that are returned by mail, is there a postmark or it's at 8 o'clock on election day?
We need to physically have it in our office for counting by 8 p.m. on election night. Postmarks are not relevant. From what I understand, years ago that was a thing, but that has been removed. Since I've been here, and I've been with the county for maybe 17 years. It was 17 years in February. So as long as I've been here, the postmark thing has been removed.
I know you said you'd notify people if their request wasn't approved, but is there a way you can check online to see that it was received?
Yes, I have that in my notes and I bypassed that, but yes, it's called Nebraska Voter Check. So if any of you have already submitted an application and you get on Nebraska Voter Check and the address is on those early voting forms towards the top of the page, if you would log in and view, it should say accepted, like, or we've received your early voting application. And you can track your early voting, the early voting process, through counting. So it'll say when we send you your ballot, and then it'll say that we have received your ballot back. And it'll say if it's accepted or rejected.
If you have a case of fraud, does the sheriff's office investigate that, or?
If I would have a case of fraud, I turn it over to the county attorney, and if the sheriff's office gets, they would likely be looped in. But my contact is the county attorney.
Have you had any cases of fraud?
We've had cases we've followed up on. We haven't had anyone prosecuted of it. And in relation to early voting, no. I haven't had to turn anyone over. We have definitely had instances where we felt the person didn't sign the envelope and we send the notice and then the person comes in with their photo ID and fixes the problem. And sometimes it's not a problem. Two instances stick in my mind, one where it was a problem and one where it wasn't, and shame on me, I was a little skeptical, but it was a voter that was of college age and was assuming this person may have been at college and someone at home may have signed for them because we had mailing data of a college, so you know, I'm piecing this together. And called the home and a parent answered and said, well, yeah, it probably doesn't match. They broke their arm. Yeah, right. Sure enough, the kid came in and did honestly have a broken arm. Okay, so yeah, I felt a little bad, but also I'm doing my job. I felt bad that he had to come down, but I mean, it was legit. And then we had an instance where a wife did sign for a spouse and called the spouse and didn't even know there was an election going on. So like, okay, well, you need to come in and we need to take care of this. So things do happen. It didn't escalate to the point where charges were ever filed, but that is my point of contact should it get to that point, county attorney.
So my husband's in a nursing home, and
I'm sorry, I can't hear that either.
my husband's in the nursing home, and I'm the power of attorney. Would I be able to fill his out, signing my name?
You can fill out, anyone can fill out an application on behalf of somebody else. You can act as an agent on the application for yourself and up to 2 people, which we do track as well, how many applications one has submitted. However, the ballot, no. And even power of attorney does not apply to your ballot. Even if the voter can just make their mark,
Like an X?
whether it be an X or, and granted, we may follow up and say it doesn't match a previous signature we have on file, but no, an agent cannot, even with power of attorney, cannot sign that ballot envelope.
One, don't feel bad about doing your job because
I don't.
I
It's just like-
greatly appreciate that you do that. And so when I hear these things, I take offense on your behalf. You know, when people criticize, I go, oh my gosh, they go through tooth and nail, and it's, you know, great. So, but the question I have is, I've seen some articles about the envelopes for the ballots being color coded. Is that something Adams County is doing?
Adams County doesn't. You do have the option both on, I wasn't aware on the envelopes, but on ballots themselves, instead of having the words Republican, Democratic, Libertarian, there's the colors red, blue, green, yellow.
So the actual ballot is the color?
The ballot itself isn't colored, but there is a colored
Just a
bar
colored bar.
someplace on the ballot. We have never done it. I just had a discussion with another election commissioner. It's like, have you ever looked into this? I'm like, it kind of sounds interesting. Where I would see it being an advantage is at the polling location when, and if any of you have worked as election workers, you know that the clerk relays to the judge who will end up pulling the ballot, you know, I need a Republican split 1 ballot. And even though to some degree that could be public knowledge, people standing in line don't necessarily need to hear my political affiliation. So substituting, hey, I need a Republican split 1 ballot with I need a purple split 1 ballot might be beneficial. I can't say I've ever had anyone complain about, the election worker announced what ballot I was getting. I've never had anyone complain about that, but it's an option.
I was going to say, they're usually pretty quiet when they say it.
Yeah, so I've never had anyone complain about it.
As a mother of a trichromatic vision child, that could be an issue for people with color blindness also. But
Yeah. I mean, you're right, it's kind of always existed, and I don't think many utilize it, but it's an option. Anything else on early voting? Yep.
For this primary, has anything changed as to like how college students can register or proof of citizenship for registration? Any of those things gone into effect? Or
No.
is everything the way it's always been at this point, except
Well-
for the voter ID, or, you know?
For Nebraska, it's going to be as it was in 2024 in regards to the photo IDs. Student IDs as of now are accepted. I know with the, and we'll move on to that after this, with the SAVE Act, there are some language in there that may indicate that student IDs would no longer be allowed. But that is passed, from what I understand, it's passed the House, hasn't passed the Senate, so it's not implemented yet. So as of now, for us, it's business as usual. So what it was in 2024 is what it's going to be in May, and I would assume likely in November as well, because even if this does pass, then the states have to figure out how to implement it, and that's not going to be done by the end of the year. So, anything else on? Yeah.
Has Secretary of State Evnen communicated with you guys in cities and counties and so forth about what's going to happen to our voter information that has been sent to the federal government?
What is going to happen to it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we got notification that he did sign the release, I believe it was, a few months ago. No, that was the only communication we've received.
You haven't heard a word back or any expectation what will be done with it? Or if you'll get recommendation as to who you should remove from the rolls?
They have not communicated anything, no. And I don't know if that's that they don't know, have all the answers either. I will say that the Nebraska Secretary of State's office is very transparent, and if there was information to share, they would have shared it. I believe that. I believe that. Questions on early voting? Are we wrapping that one up? Okay. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the SAVE Act, and we've touched on it a little bit. So, and because of what I said, we don't have a lot of information to share. I mean, yes, it passed the House, I believe last month. I think it was February 20, yeah, or was it 25? Yeah, my year off, no. But it passed the House, it's going to the Senate, whether it will become law or not. But we've been getting a lot of people in asking, you know, I haven't changed my driver's license since I got married. Can I still use that? They said I'm gonna have to have a marriage certificate at the polling location. And this kind of hit me out of nowhere. I'm like, what? Where are they getting this? What is going on? So, you know, I did call Secretary of State's office and got the lowdown on it, and basically was told, well, you know, there are some things in there, but everything that I see and what they referenced is, as far as citizenship qualification, that is done on the registration side. It's not going to be, and I shouldn't say it's not going to be, but it is presumed, it's not going to be the responsibility of the election worker at the polling sites to verify your citizenship. That is going to be verified at the registration process. So I don't think there was anything that anyone, and of course at this election, you're not going to need to worry about anything, because like I said, it's going to be business as always, as it was in 24. But if there's going to be a need to present your marriage license, your birth certificate, your citizenship here, whatever it is, that's going to be captured at the registration process. And if they're not registered to vote because they are deemed ineligible, they're not going to be on your voter rolls at the polling location. So I don't think there's anything to worry about, even if this does move forward. It doesn't appear there's going to be anything to worry about as far as an election worker or a voter going to the polls that day having to verify something, because they would have already completed that process. That is my understanding. It implies that the real voter ID, maybe in addition to the real voter ID, may have some sort of endorsement on it saying citizenship verified. But talking with the Secretary of State's office, they're kind of like, well, until this is passed and a done deal, I mean, they're not making any provisions right now. Because we just very successfully implemented Nebraska's voter ID law in 2024 with very, very, very little resistance, very little complications. So we're moving forward as we do.
So if you're registered, no worries. If you're already a registered voter, you don't have to worry about any other complications.
Just having your
I got a
photo
driver's license, I can vote.
ID at the polling location is still going to be required.
And what is it, if you are registering, what do you have to have to show citizenship? A birth certificate?
Currently, we are not verifying citizenship. That actually happens on the back, and when I say that, I mean my office. There are checks and balances with the state working with the Department of Justice. Databases that they are matching. When you're a deputy registrar or you're coming to my office or you register through the DMV, right now you are signing an oath saying you are a citizen of the United States. Any enforcement on that is being done higher up right now.
But if the SAVE Act passes and you go to register to vote,
I'm assuming we are going to have to see certain documents.
but you don't know what those things are right now.
No, because it's not passed yet, so they haven't implemented anything.
So, this is Barbara in trouble. I've heard that it may come to the point where you have to have a passport, and I know that takes some time to acquire one. Should a person be doing that ahead of time?
For voting purposes,
Yes.
I think that is excessive.
Can you say can you say her question? So that-
She was asking, it may get to the point in which you would have to apply for a passport, which is time intensive.
And
Okay.
expensive.
And expensive. And I think for voting purposes, no, because Nebraska, and I can't speak for other states, and I'm assuming if this SAVE Act passes, I don't know if each state is going to be able to decide how to best implement it, or if it's going to be uniform across all states. That's another thing, I don't know. But right now in Nebraska, if you are unable to obtain a photo ID, you can go through the Nebraska DMV and start the process of getting a free ID. So that was in place in 2024, and whether something similar would be in place should this pass and move forward, I don't know. I would assume Nebraska would keep it because we already have it. So, but time will tell.
So many of these questions kind of refer back to the fact that elections are supposed to be under the purview of states. And so, we, as you're saying, we don't know how all this is going to happen, but it's just
Yeah,
something
and it's
to keep
very
in mind.
similar to when we passed our voter ID law in 22, and it was 2020 or 22, I can't remember. It was implemented in 24. It passed, and then our state leaders had to decide how do we implement it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the same. So until it actually passes, there's probably not a lot going on about how it's being implemented yet. And how long will it take to implement? Because the Real ID law, that was, oh my goodness, that was years. And I feel like Nebraska was very much ahead of many other states. We had Real ID. I remember hearing at the airport, I think it was last summer, last May or something, and they're like, okay, here comes the deadline. We actually need a Real ID. And I remember thinking, we've had Real IDs for years now. I thought this was a done deal. Like, no, it just, so how long it will take once this is passed, don't know that either.
I am not worried for myself, but how does one get removed from the rolls?
From the voter rolls, if they're choosing to be removed from the voter rolls, wanting to be, typically, there's just an affidavit we have them sign in our office. If it's being removed because they're deceased or they've moved, we get information from Social Security office weekly about people who have died. We also do go the extra step and just check our local obituaries and search, did we have this person? We have to have some sort of documentation though in order to remove them. So a lot of times we'll get a parent coming in and say, well, my son is off at college, or maybe not off at college, but maybe they've moved out, they're on their own, they've moved away, you can take them off. I can't just take your word for it. I will send your son or daughter or whomever a card that they can return back saying, yeah, I've moved. If they don't return it, they kind of stay in inactive status in our system, but I can't just remove them without some sort of documentation that we get from a reliable source. Because I don't have much else. And when I was talking to Mary, I was like, well, it started off, well, let's discuss changes for 2026, and there are no changes for Nebraska. We had our big one in 24 with the voter ID, and it went very well. And that's the primary ballot, I guess I will say, might be a little sparse for some people. There's a lot of races that are auto-advancing. With the exception of Hastings Public Schools, I think every Adams County school has auto-advanced, so they'll be on the general. When I say auto-advanced, that means there wasn't enough candidates that filed to put it on the primary election ballot. They will automatically advance to the general election.
So since you're doing registrar training afterwards, I had asked you this question a few years ago. So much of it nowadays you can just do online. What role do registrars play now? Because people, when they stop by your table, are more likely just to do a QR code and go on. So.
Yeah, and there was actually talk a few years ago about doing away with deputy registrars for that very reason. I think there's still, you can all correct me if I'm wrong because you are the ones doing it, I would assume it'd still be useful in your schools. You know, getting those maybe first-time voters, especially in those high schools where it might not be common knowledge that a 17-year-old can vote in the primary if they're going to be 18 by the general election. That might not be information they know, or they're honestly not thinking about it. So I still think it's useful there, and of course the college students, and even if they are just getting the QR code, you're still giving the information in their hands. So it's still, I mean, it's a very good public service that you're doing.
How about Good Samaritan Village? You had mentioned to me once that that might be a good place to hold voter registration because of people moving in and out.
Yeah, but you do have to remember the voter registration. We call it getting people registered to vote, but you can also update your voter registration with those forms. Like if they've moved, in a lot of cases with Good Samaritan Village, they may have recently moved out there, and it's not always people's first thought to, oh, I got to update my voter registration. Or if people want to change their political party, same thing, they fill out the form and we'll be able to update it accordingly. So when we say voter registration, it's not just getting them registered, it's also keeping their information current. So I still think Good Samaritan Village would be a good place because we do have several that they just moved out there and they didn't maybe get it done by the deadline, the updating the registration, and they might have to vote provisionally, and it becomes a burden for them. So I do think those places like, you know, the Kensington, Good Samaritan Village, I can't remember the place in Kennesaw, but the rest are nursing home there might be good places.
This is not a question. I just so much admire you and your office. I just all the things that you have to check that, you know, people fuss about and say, well, this can't be. Honestly, knowing the checking that you do, I just want to give kudos to you.
I appreciate that. I'm proud of them. They do a really good job. Thank you. We have a very organized crew, and we are full staffed right now, which we weren't for 6 months. found that fifth person that's a good fit, and they're very helpful, they're very organized, they're very professional. So I'm very proud of them, lucky to have them. Anything else? Otherwise, that's all I've got.
Okay, those that want to stay for training, stay, and then,
Can you talk a little bit about deputizing, what that means? I'm sorry.
Okay, so to become, what it means to be a deputy registrar is that you are authorized by a clerk or election commissioner to go out and conduct voter registration events. There are certain rules you have to agree to, as far as places you can host it, times in which you can host it, and how you act at those. The biggest thing is the checks and balances that are in place with party representation. You have to do this in at least teams of 2 of opposing political parties. So you could have a Republican and a Democratic deputy registrar working together, Republican, Libertarian, nonpartisan, any combination, but there has to be more than just one party represented. You know, it has to be conducted in places that are neutral with no other agenda in your event other than getting people registered. So, and that goes as far as not just political either. That goes as far as, you know, here we're registering you to vote and my daughter's selling Girl Scout cookies. So, you know, you cannot do it in conjunction with anything like that. You are there for the sole purpose of getting people registered or updating their registrations, and that is it. But as far as qualifications, if you are a registered voter, you can apply to do so. And you will be good to conduct those events anywhere in the state of Nebraska, although there is an application that you need to submit to the local election official stating that you are planning on doing this event, and that event has to be approved. So those going through the training today, even though I will give you your certificate today saying that you've gone through the training, if you decide to say go to Kearney and run an event, you need to let the Buffalo County Election Commissioner know, I am doing this event, here's my application, she needs to approve it, not me. I would approve any from Adams County, but wherever you go, you need to have permission from that county.
For many years, we used to attend citizenship ceremonies for naturalized citizens and register voters at those. And my understanding is well, I don't know if they're making any new citizens anymore, but that somehow the powers that be didn't like having League of Women Voters help to register new citizens.
I mean, those were usually in Kearney, correct?
We did them at Kearney at the Arch, and they do them in Omaha, or they did do them in Omaha, but the last one they kind of did it on the sly so there wouldn't be protests.
And when you say they didn't like it, was it, which entity? Was it the Archway didn't want people set up there?
The federal government didn't want to do it anymore.
I kind of have an answer for that. There were rumors about it, but Lee has come out with a statement that it's fine to do voter registration at citizenship ceremonies. But I mean, that doesn't mean there can't be protests there, but it's...
And I'm assuming that doesn't mean that if the Archway said they didn't want it, I mean, if you contact Russ's, because I know there sometimes was voter registrations events there, they decide, no, we don't want you, that is their decision. So it depends on who's saying no.
Okay, so there's rumors that, you know, ICE will be at voting facilities. You know, is that something you've heard, or is that just?
Well, not here. I mean,
I know, but I mean, just.
No, we have not been made privy to anything changing here. Whether that exists in bigger cities, I don't know. So I stay in the Nebraska bubble because I like it over here. It just seems like things are a lot easier here. But no, we haven't heard anything that anything will be different at our polling locations.
Do you have your election night staff?
We've sent letters to them, and I don't know how many. Why are you wanting to be one?
I have in the past, so perhaps.
We've sent letters out with our election workers that also include our staff that works in the evenings or the counting board or those other boards that work in the courthouse. I don't know how many have returned them. Paula handles the election worker management. They usually return, and I think we decided with this primary election we're probably going to have 6. Should we need to move it to 8, we would reach out. The general election will have at least 8, if not 10. But I would guess 8 for this not presidential election. 6 for primary, 8 for general, depending on the year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I always wonder when they turn around.